Some people like to say TGIF on Fridays. Personally, don't. Um, for a variety of reasons. From my point of view, you should be happy every day, and if you're not, it's unfortunate. And it does happen to people. Unfortunate things do happen even to good people who are doing their best to be happy every day, but it doesn't always work out. And my heart goes out to all those who are not happy every day and who deserve to be. Um, so, what's going on this Friday? It is now the 15th, I believe, of August 2025. Unbelievable. 15th of August. So, we're basically halfway through August now. And if you've been looking at the Bitcoin and traditional markets, well, good for you. This video isn't about that. I'm actually going to talk to you guys real quick about what's happening in the situation with Israel and Hamas. And the plan that Hamas fears more than life itself, and they fear it going viral with Palestinians and Israelis, which it's beginning to happen. We're starting to see the distribution of this idea hit various places, and the word is getting out. And once again, something I have prognosticated about seems to be percolating. So don't be surprised if you see this hitting already mainstream sites in the coming days, weeks, or months. And the plan is very simple. If you want, I'll go over it again with you guys right now. It's basically this. Israel has already conquered much of the Gaza Strip, and much of that land is already depopulated. Because, first of all, there was never anything there. The Palestinians never built anything on much of that land. So it's literally vast tracts of empty land. And you can say, well, talking about Gaza's tiny. Yes, it's tiny relatively, but it still has, many square kilometers, and many of them are empty. And even places that had buildings and no longer have buildings because of the war, because Gaza, is run by Hamas, and Hamas spent the last 20 years literally planting bombs and tunnels in buildings where people lived. So they got destroyed as part of the strategy to not allow the Hamas to have places to hide and shoot at our soldiers from, right? To keep our soldiers safe and to do everything we can to rescue the people that are still being held hostage by Hamas and their ilk in Gaza. So much of the land in Gaza is already depopulated and under control of the IDF. And by now, you've probably heard that Israel, the government of Israel, or the cabinet of Israel, right? The Israeli government under Bibi Netanyahu as the prime minister, have decided that they're going to basically reoccupy all of Gaza. And my view on that is that it is very counterproductive in the long, even in the short and midterm, but especially in the long term. It's not useful to occupy. It is better for Israel to annex the land. Now the question is, well, should we annex all of Gaza at once or at all? And the answer to that is I believe we should not yet, at least, annex all of Gaza, because then you'd have suddenly 2 million Palestinians who would, in theory, be granted citizenship in Israel. Not necessarily, but usually. So instead, Israel should give Hamas a 24-hour warning to tell them you have 24 hours to release all the hostages and surrender power. If at the end of 24 hours you don't do that, we will begin annexing 2% of the land that we already control and is already depopulated, meaning there's no Gazans living there. Again, at a rate of 2% per day of what we already control that's already depopulated. right? So let's say we control 100 square kilometers of Gaza or whatever, right? We're going to take 2 square kilometers every day that is, depopulated. Or let's say we control 100 square kilometers and, 2/3 of it is depopulated, right? Half of it's depopulated, whatever. So 50 square kilometers is depopulated. So 50 square kilometers is depopulated. We're going to control we're going to annex an additional square kilometer every day, right? 2%. Why? Well, because 2% times 50 is 100, and there are 50 hostages still in Gaza. And if at the end of those 50 days, by some insane, crazy illogic, Hamas has not yet stopped the war and freed the hostages, well, first of all, they will lose 100% of the land that is currently depopulated that Israel controls forever. It will be annexed to Israel proper, and the fence line will be moved to there, below there. And the second thing is, Israel will then begin to annex the remainder of the land that we control at that point. Meaning, if between now and 50 days from now, or whenever that policy starts, if between the beginning of that policy and the end of that policy of 50 days, Israel takes more land in Gaza, which it probably will because it's currently fighting Hamas in those areas, then we will continue taking 2% of the newly acquired land that is depopulated every day, which of course will be a smaller amount, and it will get increasingly smaller and smaller and smaller as time passes, but it will still increase the overall amount of land that Israel annexes to the point where Hamas and the Gazans will be literally standing shoulder to shoulder like sardines in a tin can with nowhere to go. And why? Why should they do that? Well, there's a price to pay when you lose a war, especially when you start one and then lose one. Don't keep you waiting. Don't keep you waiting for what? There's a message here. This gross. So that is the plan right now that we know that Hamas fears more than literally life itself. Why? Because, well, they literally say that land matters more to them than life. Right? We know that they fear that more than dying because they keep bragging about how they don't fear dying, how death is the beginning of life for them, which is moronic, but they're morons. What do you expect? That's why they're Hamas terrorists. And you can say, well, they're really intelligent at PR. Yeah, okay, whatever. You can be good at PR and still be a moron. And it's not hard to be good at PR when you have Qatar paying for all that. Qatar, a nation of just a few 100,000 people, does actually have some pretty smart people who just happen to be on the evil side of morality. And they are using their massive amounts of oil money to brainwash Americans, and it is working very successfully, and Europeans and other people, right? Paying for propaganda that is straight up pro-Hamas propaganda across American schools and universities, and even in Europe, schools and universities. And of course, they pay for Al Jazeera because that's their baby, and they directly fund Hamas. So yeah, Hamas has PR game, so to speak, because it's very easy to publish emotional triggers like pictures of, dead babies and dead women and say, oh, Israel is genociding them. No, they're not. It's a war, and it's awful. It's a war Hamas started. And the only reason that any of those people are dying is because of Hamas. The only reason anybody's hungry in Gaza, and most people aren't, but, there are surely some who are. The only reason anyone is hungry in Gaza is because Hamas steals their food. There's obvious video evidence of that. Even the UN says up to 88% of the trucks going into Gaza for the UN to distribute, 88% of them are looted, right? And they wouldn't specify how many of them were done by Hamas. They said, oh, there's no systemic proof that Hamas does it. There's lots of video evidence that Hamas does it. You'd have to be an idiot to believe the UN. But then again, the UN is also the mouthpiece for Hamas, right? The UN is behaving like a terrorist organization 100%. They directly participated, right? Their staff directly participated in October 7th, terrorist attacks against Israel. Like, there were UN staff involved in the attacks directly. And I don't mean Hamas people who moonlight as UN people, which is also UN staff. People who were just UN employees participated in the attacks of October 7th and participated in kidnapping and holding hostages in their homes for months, if not longer. So the UN is literally a terrorist organization at this point, at least when it comes to its dealings with Israel. The UN and all of the agencies that deal with Israel, they're literally terrorists. But back to the point of Israel should annex the land that it controls in Gaza, which is depopulated, because again, that is the one thing Hamas fears more than death itself. And the Gazans in general a little bit of action there. Anyway, that is the plan. In brief, that Israel should that land because Gazans and Hamas specifically fear losing land more than dying. At least so they say. So let's put that to the test. Let's see how much, in fact, they fear losing land. Why not? It's already under Israeli control. It's already depopulated. Begin annexing it. It's empty. Move the fence there. Then it'll increase Israel's security if they fail to take up the opportunity. They'll just keep increasing Israel's security. We'll have more land legally, right? As something we won in war, which is perfectly legal, and then no one can complain about it. All right, see you guys. Bye.